Hello everyone, welcome. My name's Tommy and I'm trying to do some videos to help people understand the economy in an introductory way, and more formally if you might be taking some courses, introductory microeconomics and or introductory macroeconomics. Micro is for the individual components of the economy, macro looks at everything. So today, the next few short tutorial or help videos, the goal will be to try to understand something called the demand and supply model. Demand is always the buyer side of the market, supply is the sellers. And the demand and supply model is also known as the market model, which, you know, you think about markets in our market economy here in the United States. The coming together of buyers and sellers creates a marketplace, right? So we study economics because we want a lot of final goods and services. Economists say that there's an unlimited desire for final goods and services, but the problem is there's limited resources that produce those final goods. So there's all kinds of questions that come up, like how do we allocate those resources? How do we use them? Who gets the goods and services? Well, a lot of those questions can be answered through a marketplace. And so markets can really work. They're not all perfect, but free markets and capitalism, right, when you hear those phrases, that's what people are referring to. And, okay, so this is a little bit old school. I'm going to take this down. And speaking of old school, Becky, our producer, is here today. Thank you, Becky. She's a brainiac, 100 times smarter than me, and my other two assistants are even smarter. But they are not here today. They're really good emergencies. Jake, my photographer, and Courtney, my all-around assistant, the brainiac person who helps. Her mom's coming home from the medical center today, so and the boyfriends and girlfriends and stuff are all going and helping with all that. So the theme of what I do is very low tech, very old school, but especially so today, because luckily I'm going to come right now and get behind the camera and go over a couple of these presentations, and then very quickly, and you guys can pause if you need to get some notes, but I'll just give you a quick overview of what we're trying to do with this video and maybe the next couple that we're going to have. So excuse me for doing that. Literally, I'm coming behind the camera. I hope you all are doing well. Thank you for your patience with my old school low-tech stuff. But literally, this video is going to be about Apple stock price. So the Apple app. And it's starting us off. It's the free video. I'm trying to do this as a business. So the next couple, I'm going to try and charge for the second and third ones. And there are some boring background stuff about on the demand side of the demand and supply model, okay? Now, those next couple of videos, right, are going to deal with these worksheets. And then I'm going to let you just look at that so that you can see what's coming up. But a major theme of those worksheets and the model is the goofy phrases that we have. And the three-word phrase, change in demand, delta D, is not the same thing as a change in quantity demand. So 3 words versus 4 words means totally different stuff in the model. And there's a quick look about what it means, and you can keep that in mind, especially if you're doing this to really work with me and try to take notes and stuff like that. Yeah, you want to be able to write that stuff down, then those phrases and what it means graphically. Okay, so I'm going to come around here some more. Here are some symbols that I'm going to be using and what they mean. D for demand, S supply. So I'm not going to go through all that because I'm going to try and make this a quick video. But again, you can pause that. Oh, look, there's my email. If you're interested in some more videos, you can email me and I'll send them to you. Again, low tech. Some point we'll get a website. We're going to use the quadrant 1 of the Cartesian plane geometry thing. Don't even worry about that. Okay. But do you remember all this stuff? I'm just going to let you take a look at the picture. Instead of Y, like they use in math for the vertical axis, we're going to use price. And instead of X, we're going to use quantity or Q. Okay. So, and we're going to be in quadrant 1 because both price and quantity are going to be positive numbers. Okay. Now, here's my little learning model. Actually, I stole this from and it's way too quick, and apologize for everybody that's studying education. But in our introductory class, like some math and science classes, a lot of the courses at step 3, right, applications, and that's what can make it a tough class, introductory class, even though it's intro, it can be tough. And then here's some ideas about who these videos can be for. So I'll just kind of, for sure, people taking economics are planning to take it in the upcoming time frames. Maybe some people going back, re-reviewing, or maybe it's new to you if you majored in something other than economics or business, right? And then even some younger folks, they want to try and figure out, Mom, Dad, why am I studying this math? And they're pretty bright people. You could literally, I'm going to do in these videos stuff that I do for test questions in a college class. So maybe they could get started on practicing for their future education, and you can entice them. Okay. So I'm going to come back and see if I can get started. I really have tape on the floor. Becky's laughing at me right now. Jake is going to be having a heart attack because, I'm sorry, Jake, I'm messing up so much. He is such a brainiac. He does such a good job. Okay, so this is the final product of what we're going to do today. It's the market for Apple stock, and we're going to change all that, literally over here. So we have there's going to be a change in demand. And it's going to be such that there's an increase in demand, and the mechanics of the model are when you have an increase in demand, that you shift the demand curve to the right. So notice the first thing when you look at a graph, when you see it in a textbook or book or on the web, it's already done. It's like, oh yeah, sure, I understand all that. But how would you actually draw it? So I never give multiple choice questions. I make them people draw this stuff, But we practice it in class. I give it to them for homeworks. We build up a portfolio of homework questions that become our possible test questions. And people really, really work hard to get these models done because they know they're going to see it again on the test and stuff. And I think that's okay in an introductory. I do, introductory class to be so straightforward. Maybe when you're taking your 8th class in economics, we can be real tricky or something like that. But anyway, most people, if you guys take it, probably will have a multiple choice test. You still got to draw these graphs on scratch paper in order to get like a series of questions correct, right? To see it out in your mind, draw it out, and then answer the question. So I think it really can be relevant for however way the course might be set up if you're taking a real live college class, right? But PE is going to stand for equilibrium price, E word first, QE, equilibrium quantity. When the demand curve shifts to the right, at the intersection, that's where we have equilibriums. More about this in future videos, you guys. So the first equilibrium price, the first equilibrium quantity, when you shift to the right, the intersection of the second demand curve and the supply curve, we have a higher equilibrium price. Apple stock price goes up, right? And then more of the stocks being traded. So notice, the first thing you want to do is notice what's on the axis. Price is on the vertical axis and the demand supply model. Quantity on the horizontal axis. Okay, so literally, if you're looking at this video, you also got a 2-page Microsoft Word file, and one is totally blank, and there's a little word problem there, and then I have it set up for how you can do this question. And then this one has the sort of verbal or word description, right, typed in, but the graphs are still blank. We're going to draw the graph again, this graph again together. I'll show you how to do that. But literally, I'm using green because we're on the demand side. So if you're going to try and do these videos with me, I'm going to use green paper and green markers for the demand side. So it might not be a bad idea, and then blue for the supply kinds of questions that we're going to have later on in the videos. So the first set of videos are 3 videos about stuff on the demand side. So I'm trying to cheat ahead and give you some whet your appetite with why Apple stock price is going up. Literally, in the past year, Apple stock price traded as low as $310, and its high was $644. Now it's about in the mid 500s. So why would it go from 310 to 500? Can we use a demand and supply model to help us understand that a little bit, right? Who knows about every little detail, but yes, the model can help us. It's a model, it's simple, simplified from the real world, but it still can give us great insight into what's happening, okay? So in the word problem, literally, we talk about, Hey, do you like some Apple products? Do your friends, if you don't have any yourself, do you know some friends or family members that do? A lot of people love all that i stuff, right? Since back the iPod in 2001, and then, you know, the iPhones and the iPads and the iTouches and the iStores. Wow, you know, and so their sales revenue is pretty darn good, and their costs are very low. It's unbelievable, their profit margins. So, you know, revenue minus expenses gives us some measure of profit or income, or in finance they call that earnings. So that looks like they have great earnings potential into the future from all the iWorld kinds of products. So that causes a lot of interest in the buying of the stock. It increases the number of buyers. Now, more about this in the future, especially in the next couple videos, which are going to be tough, a tiny bit boring, but this is called a determinant of demand. If it changes, it causes demand to change, okay? So we can start, you gotta study this a bunch, but as you study it a bunch, or a bit more, you can start, once you have the word problem, you can start sketching out in parts. You can pull the parts of it out. So the first thing is just to recognize in the word problem that you have a determinant of demand, number of buyers. So the number of buyers is a determinant of demand. That's simple. Okay. So how do you know that? Well, you would study it. Okay. And again, they're coming up. I'm cheating ahead here a little bit. They're coming up in the next couple of videos. Next, we want to talk about the direction. Well, this great news about earnings led us to increase the number of buyers. Okay. Literally anything. If somebody said, you know, say you had a regional company, we're right now in the Philadelphia area. So if we were in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, you know, New Jersey, maybe a little New York, down into Delaware, Maryland, they call them Mid-Atlantic states. And somehow we met some great people from China that said, hey, we'll show you how to bring your product over to China. There's like 1.5 billion people over there. The potential increase in the number of buyers, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to increase your demand, right? So an increase in the number of buyers causes an increase in demand, right? This is the goofy words the economists use. But you guys know this already from just sort of being in the world, right? This is the model. Then we want to talk about how we use this phrase, increase in demand, in that model. And we're going to apply it in a graphical presentation. So the graphical illustration statement is an increase in demand. Again, this is the rule of the mechanics. An increase in demand may be graphically illustrated by a shift right of the entire demand curve. So let's just keep going and doing it. But once again, I apologize to everyone, and even to Jake, because I got to get behind and slide this over a little bit. Excuse me. So once again, hope everybody's doing good. And here we go. We're going to draw this graph, and I hope you can have the handouts, and you can draw it with me, right? Okay, does that make sense? So right in the big part there, you can put the graph, or you can just draw it on any kind of note paper there, okay? So, we're going to have two axes because there's going to be two variables that in this model. And then, so we first want to draw the shell of the demand and supply model. So I cheated here a little bit because everything's so tight. Here's the horizontal axis. So we'll label that quantity per time period. Here's the 0 point, the origin. Remember on the number line, the numbers as you go from left to right will be increasing, and the vertical number line, they'll be increasing as you go up. And this vertical axis, instead of y, right, in math, we're going to say price expressed in terms of dollars, since we're here in the United States. So that's the demand and supply shell. And then you want to write what market you're doing. The market for Apple stock, and then I even, try and put a little note as to what we're trying to do. We just saw that there's going to be an increase in demand from the increase in the number of buyers because of the great earnings. Okay. Now, since we're going to have a change in demand, I always wind up drawing the supply curve first, because it's not going to change in our model, okay? A supply curve, more about this in the future, as you move left to right, is positively sloped. So as you move left to right, it rises, okay? Because price and quantity supply move together. More about that in the future, okay? Now, price and quantity demand on the buying side move in opposite directions. So to display that negative relationship, what happens is we're going to draw a demand curve that as we move from left to right will fall. So we need two of them. I can't draw the first one way out here because I'll run out of room. So I want to sort of start at the top and come down to the bottom and label that D subscript 1. So you know about subscripts, okay? And then at the intersection, that is going to be something referred to as an equilibrium. More about that as well in the future. And since it's demand curve 1, the first one, got all my different markers here, sorry about that. We're going to label that E word first here, and the way this is, equilibrium price 1. And the corresponding quantity is equilibrium quantity 1. Now what does this mean? Sometimes somebody will label this QD for quantity demand. So at that price, if I go to the demand curve, yes, that is quantity demand. But at that price, when they intersect, it's the same point, isn't it? So that's going to also be quantity supply. So this is a special phrase, equilibrium quantity, because it's the quantity where quantity demand, the amount we want to buy, is just balanced by quantity supply, the amount producers want to sell. Okay? So that's why we have the equilibrium situation, where at the intersection of the demand curve and the supply curve, where quantity demand equals quantity supply. More about this in future videos, but that's a special quantity. And therefore, the price that brings that about is referred to as the balancing or equilibrium price. Okay? Now, great earnings, increase in the number of buyers, the mechanics of the model says, oh, shift the demand curve to the right, not up or down, shift it to the right. There's an increase in demand. Okay? So, let's do that. I'm just going to imagine that this is no longer there. So I'm just going to try and move out to the right a little bit and draw approximately a parallel line, right? So here we go. Start about the top, end about the bottom, and we're going to have demand 2, the second demand curve. And we want to draw an arrow at the bottom here where the labels are, showing that we shift right, and then I always draw another one up top, reminding us that we're shifting to the right. Okay. So now, since D1's not there anymore, you can have a great imagination, especially with me. Okay, D2 and supply curve, at that intersection, we have new values for the equilibriums. Right? This is going to be called PE2, the letters, but the words would be equilibrium price 2. And the symbols or letters for QE2, or equilibrium quantity 2, what do we notice, right? Remember the number line? That's an increase in the equilibrium quantity, and again the vertical number line, that's also going to be an increase. So I'll emphasize it here a little bit coming inside. Well, that's a little too messy there. I'll just kind of maybe draw the other arrow here. Okay? So, we've had 3 things that we said. That we recognize the number of buyers. How do we recognize that? By studying. There's a list of determinants of demand. Do you see number of buyers anywhere on this graph? It's not. Price and quantity, 2 dimensions, right? We're a simplified model. Somebody's going to go, well, price isn't the only reason that I look at when I buy a house. Yeah, my home prices have been coming down in my neighborhood, but holy smokes, I lost my job, right? So another determinant of demand is income. And there's, again, another basic list of determinants. So price is very, very important, but it's not the only thing. Well, all these things that are not on the graph there, this other list of determinants of demand, when they change, they cause a change in demand, and that's how we handle them within. So the model becomes very, very dynamic. It looks kind of goofy when you just look at the 2 axes, but that's, again, the model trying to stay in 2 dimensions so that we can draw it on a board or draw it on the wall or on the handouts, or you see it in a textbook or something like that, right? Trying to make it basic and presentable, but the model can handle all those complications. Okay, so the number of buyers is a determinant of demand. An increase in demand an increase in the number of buyers causes an increase in demand, and then an increase in demand may be graphically illustrated by a shift right of the entire demand curve. Now, what about the conclusion? What the equilibrium results statement says, the equilibrium results of an increase in demand are, and I'm like screaming and yelling at my students, look at the graph, there's the answers are there. Right? What happens to the equilibrium price? We'll always talk about that one first because everybody's interested in price, right? The equilibrium results of an increase in demand are an increase in equilibrium price and what happens? An increase in equilibrium quantity. That's it, right? That's pretty cool, right? Demand and supply model helps us understand why Apple stock price might be going from 310 bucks over a period of months up to like, 550 bucks or something like that. It even went as high as 644 at some point. But that helps us. Oh, look, if you want some other videos, there's my email address. So low tech, sorry about that. We'll get a website sometime soon. Econ Help Vids, 2012 at yahoo.com. Okay. So I'm going to jump behind the video as we finish up, and I'm going to try to go through some of these handouts that are presentation sheets that you can't see one more time. And thank you so much for taking a look at these videos. But there again, there's the Apple one, and the next couple we're going to do some background stuff, and then there's what the background ones, some of the themes that are going to be happening with the background ones. Once more, if you guys want to pause what all these symbols mean, right? Does that make sense? And oh look, there's the video, there's the email address. And then remember, in the graphical world, where does that come from? Well, it comes from math, right? It's putting two number lines together to get the Cartesian plane geometry space. And then there's, I always tell my students, you got to go do the background stuff. Go get the levels 1 and 2, get the definitions down. I'll help you with the applications, with the graphical and other kinds of applications that we do. And then again, if you want to pass the word, for sure, anybody coming up, taking some economics classes in their planned futures or currently, and then even if you know some professionals that are maybe want to review what's happening in the economy, you think the economy is important in the past few years, it sure has been. And then maybe even if you have some younger folks at home that may be getting a bit bored, you could get them to try and study some econ and get ready for their future careers, and as a student and in the real world. Okay, well, I can't thank you enough. Thank you very, very much. Okay, see you next time. Bye-bye.